Everyone. Super excited to be here today. I'm Kat Kosmeskis. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Simply Vital Health, and we are making decentralized technology accessible to healthcare through our open source technology, Health Nexus.
And I am Anna Villarreal, Kat's co-host, and I am the founder and CEO of Life Story Health, and we are a bioscience company that's innovating precision medicine through diagnostic biomarkers. And we have a really special guest on with us. I'm going to do a quick introduction, give a little bit of background on how I know her, and then we're just going to get into the subject matter, which is going to be, as Fayne said, hope we don't get into too much trouble on this podcast. So we have Dr. Fayne Frye with us, and she is a board-certified clinical and surgical dermatologist. She practices outside of New York City, and she specializes in the diagnosis and treatment of skin cancer. She's a nationally recognized expert. She does a lot of consulting for numerous media outlets, including NBC, USA Today, Huffington Post, Reader's Digest, and she's done a lot of stuff on cable and major TV outlets. She also has an educational skincare website called FryFace.com, and it really clarifies and simplifies the overwhelming amount of choices that you have, but puts them into affordable, effective, safe, all based on your skin type. And so I know Kat, my co-host, she's kind of coming into this fresh, and so she might have some questions on that. But Fayne, happy to have you here. And if I missed anything in your introduction, please let me know.
No, that was perfect. I thank you.
All right. So the background on how Fayne and I know each other is I am also the women's health editor of a website called The Doctor Weighs In. And our mission, both The Doctor Weighs In, so Pat Sabler, who founded the website, Fayne, and mine, is to give fact-based information to the consumer. And each one of us is innovating our own industries. And so for me, I want to deliver fact-based information to the female patient about their health and about the lack of sex-specific testing. And Fayne wants to provide fact-based information based on skincare information to the consumer products that are all out there and about how to select better ones. And so I reached out to Fayne, and she's been a contributor on The Doctor Weighs In. She's done some really cool articles for us. You should check them out because going back to not getting in too much trouble, Fayne is about giving you fact-based information, and so a lot of times what the industry is telling you is different than the actual truth. And so we're writing a bunch of articles on skin cancer because our readers want to know that, but they also, there's a lot of information, and it's usually only touching on a few different skin cancers when there's a lot of them, and also people don't know their risk factors. So Fayne might go into that over this podcast. And then we've also done some edgy stories, which is always really fun. And so it might go into that we discuss some of that on this podcast as well. Fayne has so much information to give, and she gives it in such a simplified way that I think you'll find yourself wanting to just listen to her talk. So maybe I should stop talking and Fayne, let you just, if there's something that you want to kick off for our listeners to know, or if you, Kat, want to ask any questions, again, this is just going to be a casual, really fun conversation.
Okay, Kat, do you have any questions?
Let's talk about FryFace, because Kat did have a question on that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
So looking forward to the podcast, I checked out your website and really loved what I saw, but was also surprised that I only saw the products that I could find at Target, for example.
Mm-hmm.
ROC, Rock, if that's how you say it, Rock, ROC, Neutrogena, and I think Aveeno maybe? But it was
Aveeno? Mm-hmm.
It was not Clinique or, the counter in Dillard's. It was very straightforward. So can you talk about your angle with that? And as a consumer, perhaps that is exactly what you wanted is I realized, maybe those are great just the way they are. And I don't have to go buy something from the counter in Dillard's.
Which,
Well,
by the way, hold on, listeners,
yeah.
Dillard's is
Dillard's. I
Kat-
just had a mental note.
Kat and I are both from Texas originally, and Dillard's is a large department store in
right.
the South, and I think it only extends up. I think their furthest extension up to the Northeast is like Maryland or something. So
Makes sense.
anyway, yeah. So Fayne.
Well, let me just tell you first that I have no affiliation with any particular manufacturer. I don't have any sponsorships. I don't have any. I don't get paid to speak on behalf of any particular manufacturer, and that's important because a lot of certainly higher end lines, but even people who sell product, their goal is to profit. Their goal is to make money. It's a wonderful industry, the skincare industry, and in my opinion, it's a very safe industry. But again, my goal is to base my recommendations on the one piece of information on any skincare product that matters, and that's the ingredient listing. The front of any given skincare product is, besides the name of the product and the amount that's in the product, the ounces or the fluid ounces, most other terms you see on the front of a skincare product label are marketing. So, for example, nourishing. Now, it sounds like a nice thing to nourish the skin, but the top layer of skin is dead. It's not eating. There's no need to feed the top layer of skin. So this is a marketing term, nourishing. Hypoallergenic. It implies to the consumer that the product is going to create fewer allergies. But there is no product that you can guarantee is not going to cause an allergy. So I always tell my patients to test a little bit before, even on, on any given product. Put it on your back of your ear, on your arm a few days. So if the front of the bottle is marketing and the back of the bottle or the ingredient listing is what matters, we have a problem. And the problem is the average consumer doesn't understand or doesn't have that basic chemistry knowledge to understand the ingredients and the formulation. So being that I had many years of chemistry in school and in medical school, and I have very long history of studying these ingredients, I became quite adept of understanding formulation. And that's how I base the products I recommend, what I recommend. Now, the reason I recommend the products from reputable, nationally and internationally recognized brands, manufacturers, is for several reasons. First of all, they have the resources. They have the resources to produce a safe product. They hire biologists and chemists and environmentalists. They have resources that smaller companies don't necessarily have. And their products are therefore more affordable. There is absolutely no correlation between what you pay for, say, a moisturizer and its efficacy. And they're available. They're available probably, anywhere you go on vacation. Let's say you're out in California. If you run out of your moisturizer, you can go down to your local pharmacy and you can pick it up. So it makes a lot of sense to me to recommend products that is safe, effective, available, and affordable. Certainly more than if I made my own FryFace line, which I have no intention of doing. But if I did, I don't have the resources, the safety resources that these companies have. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, I decided that if I was a consumer, I want to know what, again, the best thing for me is. That would be make the most sense. So that's why, to answer your question, I recommend products that have international recognition, companies that have international recognition, and they also have a reputation at stake, these big companies. So that answers why I use just those types of products versus the high-end products. It's been fun. This all started as a product selector tool that I had patients coming in with acne. And again, since the ingredients are what matter, if you have acne, and there are ingredients in certain products like isopropyl myrostate, the average consumer doesn't know this ingredient, acetylated lanolin alcohol. They can cause acne. So what I did is I programmed this little product selector, and I tagged all these ingredients where research showed it can make these conditions worse. Acne, I did the same thing for eczema, by the way. So if you're a consumer and you come along and you say, geez, I want a moisturizer. I want a moisturizer for the daytime, which means it has sunscreen in it. And I'm acne prone. If you click acne prone, all the products that have one of those tagged ingredients, the ones that can exacerbate acne, are taken away so that you as a consumer don't have to buy a skincare product that can make you break out, at least to the best of the research that's available. Now, that takes me to another concept that we're told by the media and by the beauty industry, women in particular, but men too, that you need all kinds of products. You need eye creams and neck creams and hand creams and night creams. Well, there's no, take night creams, for example. There's no, ingredients don't know what time of day it is. All these creams are formulated very similarly. So it makes no sense. If you work the night shift, for example, do you think you need a day cream? Right? It makes absolutely no sense. A night cream is just a moisturizer that has no sunscreen in it. So if you put it in a little thicker jar, or a little thicker consistency in a smaller jar, and you can increase the price, now you have a night cream. Now you, Anna or Kat, you have to go buy your facial moisturizer, and now you have to go buy your night cream. And of course, you're going to have to buy that eye cream. The skin right around the eye.
Obviously.
Right? Well, you're going to buy an eye cream, but the skin right under the eye is no different than the skin a half an inch away on the upper cheek. And if you can't put it on the eye, you shouldn't be putting it on halfway inch on the upper cheek. So you don't need an eye cream. Again, the industry is consistently telling the population that they need all these different kinds of products, when in essence, science says there's really only two kinds of ingredients that you really need that are good for you. So with all this, and I can certainly discuss that in more detail, but getting back to why I created FryFace, it's just to clarify for the consumer and simplify an overwhelmed consumer base that walks into a store and is overwhelmed by a huge wall of product and bombarded by misinformation with good intent. Most people who sell skin products are doing it with good intent. But I just wanted to get rid of all that marketing hype and base it just, again, on the ingredients and science.
That's fascinating because I actually was just the other day looking for a replacement of my moisturizer. My grandmother used to tell me that every 6 months I should change the moisturizer brand that I use. And that's how her face has stayed so beautiful. Mm-hmm. Southern grandmothers. The things they tell you.
Right. She probably has genetically. She won the genetic lottery.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, hold on. I just don't know what's worse. The information, the mythical information, or the fact that your grandmother is saying, this is how I stay so beautiful.
Yeah.
The self-proclaimed beauty. I love it.
Oh, grandmother. She's a doll. And when I was looking at the skincare, I did notice that there was day moisturizer and night moisturizer, and I asked myself the question, why does it matter? And then I noticed that the ingredient was sunscreen in the day, and that was missing in the night cream.
Right.
And then I had to ask myself, does it matter? Why can't I I have sunscreen at night? Am I not supposed to? Is it anti-mood?
Right. The ingredients don't know the difference, and and the recipe, the average recipe. You know, it's funny. I talk to my patients about recipes of how are moisturizers formulated, and the best analogy I can give is if you cook a cake. You know, the average cake is made with flour and eggs and milk, baking soda. And if you add carrot, you get a carrot cake. And if you add some chocolate, you get a chocolate cake. Well, basically, moisturizers are formulated similarly. They're almost all water-based. They add little ingredients called humectants, which draw water into the skin. You might have heard of glycerin or hyaluronic acid. Mm-hmm. They also contain occlusives, which are ingredients that basically create a film so that water can't evaporate out of the skin. The most popular one is petrolatum, just petrolatum jelly. Dimethicone is the silicone-based derivative of it. But the typical recipe is identical, and so is true with night creams and day creams. Though they're marketed differently, day creams often have sunscreen in them, not always, but often. Night creams never do. Why would you need a sunscreen filter at night? But again, to just make a lot more product, something else that people need to buy, there's no reason to ever buy a quote-unquote night cream.
So can you tell the readers, the listeners, about that silk pillow that I use for extra fine wrinkles to go away over the night while I sleep?
The silk pillow myth. Yes, there is a myth that if you sleep on a silk pillow, you won't get wrinkles. I don't know of any study, double-blinded or otherwise, that can correlate using a silk pillowcase. There's also a myth that you should take your makeup off at night before you go to bed, or you'll get wrinkles.
Tell me I don't have to do that.
Well, you'll get a dirty pillowcase.
Yes. Well, it's the same thing, right? Makeup doesn't know the time of day.
Right. So if you're walking around all day standing straight up and you're wearing makeup, and then all of a sudden you lie down, is it going to cause you to get wrinkles because you're now lying down, not standing up? I mean, it actually makes no sense. I'm all for washing your face at night before you go to bed. I happen to not want a dirty pillowcase. But there's a lot of myths. There are a lot of myths out there. Drinking 8 glasses of water a day. That's great if you want to run to the bathroom, but there's no studies that show drinking 8 glasses of water a day decreases your wrinkles.
Speaking of Southern, in my Southern Living magazine, they were featuring a mother-daughter combo. They have a business in South Carolina, and one of the questions of the questionnaire or the conversation was, how do you stay so beautiful and wrinkle-free? And they said it was 3 things. It was 8 ounce glasses of water every day, and then getting 8 hours of sleep, and then really good food. And it was funny that they had said the water was a big contributing factor to their no wrinkles, and then to hear what you just said about there not being a certain correlation that has been found is fascinating.
What about sleep and stress then? So is that well-founded, Fayne?
So the skin is an organ, right? And anything that's good for your body is going to be good for your skin. So people always say, what's the best thing I can do for my skin? First, let me preface this by telling you there is an anti-aging cream out there. It's by far the most effective. It is universally accepted as the best product, certainly to prevent any premature aging, and that is sunscreen. And if you don't believe me, I challenge every woman and man, for that matter, especially if you're at 35, 40 years of age and older, compare the skin on unexposed parts of your body, it can be your tush or on your chest, and compare it to the areas that are exposed to the sun, like the chest and the face. You will see a huge difference, and the only difference is sun exposure. So as far as really taking care of your skin, this is not the sexy answer everybody wants. It's not the ingredients like vitamin C and vitamin E and retin A and all those other lovely retinoid products that people like. The best thing for your skin is what's good for your health. You mentioned sleep. Yes, there is ample evidence now that shows sleep deprivation is not good for skin. There is ample evidence that shows exercise is great for the skin. A healthy diet is good for the skin. And remember, I said there were 2 kinds of skincare products where science has clearly shown a health benefit. One is sunscreen, and the other is moisturizers. And the reason for that is skin that has a high water content has been shown to minimize certain skin conditions like acne. Acne patients who are well moisturized actually do better. So is true with eczema patients. Atopic dermatitis patients do better with moisturized skin. Rosacea tends to not flare up as much with moisturized skin. It makes sense. It's like driving your car and you're going on a long trip. You put air in your tires. They function better. There's less tread on the road. They work better. So is true with moisturizing. Increase hydration of the skin, increase water content. The skin is healthier. And there's some evidence, and I don't have a lot of proof right now, but I'm looking for it, is laughter. I know it sounds crazy, but I've been reading a lot of studies on laughter. Some people correlate it with low stress. There is some evidence that laughter is now being shown to have some health benefits, and I don't have any particular studies that correlate that with skin health per se. But again, if it's good for the health, I have to believe it's good for the skin.
And so just everything that you've been saying is about fact-based information. And so I want to, and for me, this podcast is so cool because it's about educating the everyday consumer on things that I'm looking at Kat and she's like, oh, I didn't know that. And obviously before meeting you, I didn't know any of it either. So there's a couple things that I think would be cool for our listeners to maybe hear. And one of them is the edgy story that you wrote on anti-wrinkle creams, if you want to go into that. But then also the other one that I think really surprised me was exfoliation. So I don't know what path you want to take, but we're happy to go down either of them.
Okay, well, I'll just briefly tell you, there's the industry, again, a lot of consumers pick product and procedures because they feel good. And there's nothing wrong with going and spending your money, a few bucks, if you want to go have a facial. There's nothing, inherently wrong with a consenting adult who can afford to go have a facial, but that's just one example. Facials aren't necessarily good for the skin. And the reason for that is the top 15, 20 layers of skin, as I said, are dead. They're functional, but they're not alive. And those 10, 15 layers are the 10, 15 layers that are responsible for maintaining your water hydration in your skin. Interestingly, people who never moisturize, there are people who never put a moisturizer on their bodies. Their skin isn't chipping and cracking and falling onto the sidewalk, right? Because the skin can moisturize itself. There are mechanisms by which the skin moisturizes itself, and it's mostly happening in those top 15 layers. So you need those layers. Now the top layers fall off and they're renewed, and it's a constant. It's kind of like a brick wall where the top bricks fall off and it's being replaced by the lower bricks. So there's very little evidence that shows by removing those layers, it's good for you. Now it might feel good. You take off those rough cells, it might feel good, but that's what happens in facials and in exfoliation. When you exfoliate the skin, you're taking off the very layers, the lipids and the proteins that are responsible for maintaining your hydration. Again, it feels good, but it might not be good for you. And there are a lot of kinds of products and procedures that, again, are based on what looks good and what feels good, not on what function, not what is healthy for you. So when you read my piece on exfoliation, I had to explain why I don't exfoliate. And the other issue is, cleansing. People talk about cleansing. Soaps and cleansers can't distinguish the dirt on your face from the cells and the proteins and the lipids that your skin needs. It just removes whatever, which is why harsh soap is bad for you.
What would be an example of a harsh soap?
Harsh soap by definition is not a cleanser. The consumer thinks a cleanser and a soap is the same thing. Soap is an animal fat mixed with an alkali, and it creates a pH of a product that's a pH of 9 or 10, like lye. It's what used to exist in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. People used to wash their hair with it, but it left a soap scum on the hair and on the bathtub, and so it was very unfavorable. Cleansers today are much more sophisticated. They use synthetic detergents, and they're called Syndet bars. Dove is an example of a Syndet bar. It's very mild. It's a cleanser, but it's not true soap. It's not made from animal fat. So there's a clear difference between a non-soap cleanser and a soap. So on FryFace, I recommend non-soap cleansers. I don't believe there's any soaps really made from fat. They're too harsh. The pH is too high versus the natural pH of the skin, which is around 5, which is what these synthetic detergents are made of. But my point was, these soaps, they remove everything from the skin. So if you really want to exfoliate, just cleanse gently. You'll take all those dead cells that need to come off.
So
there's no need to exfoliate the layers that you need.
So we could go on to FryFace and find what the non-soap cleansers are on the market.
I think they're all
recommend.
non-soap cleansers.
Okay.
Yeah, whether they're liquid or, they're all.
So as much as I want to talk about the anti-wrinkle cream, we're running a little short on time, but would it be presumptive of me to ask, would you join us for another podcast at some point where we can kind of dig deeper into the anti-wrinkle creams and the story you wrote on that, but also just, again, the industry as a whole and what you want the consumer to know, and what maybe I would even love to do like a myth versus fact. That could be really fun with you.
You tell me when. I'm game.
Okay, when? But we have really appreciated having you on, and it's so clear that even though we talked about FryFace for a lot of the podcast, it's not a plug for FryFace because you don't get anything out of it. It is just your mission to deliver fact-based information to the consumer, and I have to tell you, it is so refreshing every time I talk to you. I always leave feeling empowered. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was really a lot of fun.
All right, great. Well, you are setting the pace with consumer information on skincare, and we really appreciate it. And we will talk with you very soon on anti-wrinkle creams and some myth versus fact around skincare.
Perfect.
All right. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay. Bye, ladies.